hit him. He kicked. Well, guys, it's January 9th. It is, I think it's going to be my last hunt for the season, unfortunately. It's been an awesome hunting season this year. I've had an absolute blast. I've been able to hunt more than I ever expected because of COVID and working from home and vacation time, but I can't believe it's finally coming down to this one last hunt. Both Dad and I are going out tonight. Dad's going to the farm, and I'm going out here to the lease. I still have a buck tag, and so does he. So we'll see what happens with buck-wise, but we both have some doe tags, so my goal is to at least shoot a doe tonight, and then at last light, if there's not any other bucks, I may shoot another doe. So it's been an absolute blast this season. If you guys have been following along, we really appreciate you guys following along and watching and all the support. Reason why I'm probably not hunting tomorrow is the last day, is it's also the last day of pheasant season, and I'd like to get Coda out and see if we can get on some more pheasants. So yeah, so we're going in here, hopefully gonna shoot a buck. It would be awesome to shoot a deer the last day. It would just kind of be the epitome of my 2020 hunting season, on the fact that, I hunted extremely hard all bow season. I shot one the last day I could bow hunt, and it would be sweet to shoot one tonight and do the same thing with my gun. So hopefully we see either Spikezilla, that great big old deer, or the big 8, or icing on my cake this season would be to see that split G2 buck, just because he got away from me and I've yet to still close that chapter. So I unfortunately think I know how that chapter ended, but there's always hope. So we're going back in here, gonna see what we see, and hopefully shoot a doe at least. Well, guys, I'm set up. I ended up coming out. There's this tiny little draw of trees. I've sat it a couple times with Heidi up probably 40 to 50 yards to my right. And then in late November, I hung a stand right there, and I almost shot Spikezilla with my bow out of this tree. But I picked this spot because majority of the deer that we see end up by this tree out here in the center, and we can shoot that with our guns from our other spots closer to the creek. The problem is I believe that most of the big mature bucks aren't coming out into this main pasture until end of legal. I think they're holding off actually by one of the stands that we have set for bow hunting, but it's so loud you can't get back there. And a majority, or if not all, the deer end up eventually coming through across this. It's like a creek crossing. There's a culvert and a crossing. So majority of the deer end up coming here to this point. So I decided to sit here in the center of all the action instead of going to further that way by that stand and being out of the game for deer that were over here. I sit up here with the hopes that they're all going to eventually funnel here. But if they do hang up a little bit out, I found a nice sturdy log that I can get set up on and hopefully be able to get a shot off. So I'm gonna hunker down here. I'm gonna have to stand the whole set. So far this year I've found hunting on the ground with a gun, usually we set up next to a tree, but I found that standing gives me a better vantage. So I've been standing a lot this year. So it's harder to stay still, so you just have to be really, really diligent on not moving. So got a pretty good height. I can hide. There's a standing tree here with a bunch of brush and the horizontal one here. So I'm going to tuck in right here next to my camera arm and film. And when I have to shoot, I'm going to prop the gun up here and take a shot. think I hit him. He kicked. He kicked really good. He kicked. I think I hit him. That's a different buck. That's a different buck. I hit him. I'm pretty sure I hit him. I saw him kick. I think I saw him go down. Oh my gosh. 2 minutes to spare. Oh no. Oh no. Holy smokes. What? Oh no. I said I don't know what I would do if I shot a buck and that happened. Oh man. Well, that's that, I guess. Well guys, as you can see, it's the next day. I ended up getting up to that buck and both of his antlers popped off, as you can tell here, which is actually kind of disappointing because I really have no idea how big he actually was. And I'll put some photos up here on the screen that we were able to grab of him. But this is a deer that we've had a ton of history with, and quite frankly, I don't know if we ever thought we were going to actually get a shot at this buck. And the main reason for that is because he just has been so elusive. He was the first deer we got a photo of on this lease, this first year we've had this lease. And Hunter checked the camera that day, and as soon as he saw the photo, it looked like a shooter, right? And so he ended up jumping back up in the stand, and he ended up shooting a different really old deer that was on the lease that day. And then a few minutes later, this buck came out. And since Hunter had already shot a deer with his muzzleloader, he was tagged out. He still had his bow tag, but you can't fill your bow tag with a muzzleloader kill, obviously, in Iowa. So he had to watch it walk away. But Hunter actually filmed this deer fight his great big buck that he shot with his bow this year. These two got into an all-out brawl, and it was really cool footage. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to see it, but the Big 8, I think he got his butt whooped that day, and he ran off with his tail tucked between his legs because Hunter's deer was just a true giant. And kept hunting this property. I stuck that split G2 buck, and we had trail camera photos of this deer, but I really never had an encounter until I think it was November 13th. Hunter and I were actually hunting the pre-hung stand that we have, and right as the wind shifted, it was a north wind all morning, and right as the wind shifted to a south wind, which that stand is awful for a south wind, he came out of the creek from the north. And as soon as he did, we've got footage of him, he stuck his head up and he smelled us because he was downwind of us, and he turned around and walked away, didn't blow or anything. So that day was a heartbreaker because that's the first time I had laid eyes on him, and I realized how nice of a deer he really is. And ever since, I really haven't seen him until I think it was the first day of muzzleloader season. Hunter and Dad came out to this property, and they ended up seeing him and Spikezilla, the other great big old deer. He's not really big antler-wise, he's just such a big-bodied deer. And it was a far shot, and I don't think Dad necessarily wanted to shoot this deer. I think he wanted to shoot Spikezilla more, just because of how cool of a deer he was. And other than that, we haven't really had that many run-ins with this buck. So I had hunted this property a few times during late muzzleloader season here with Heidi, and a couple times by myself. And we were seeing does, we were seeing small bucks, but how this property sets up, we couldn't do any improvements to it. It's literally just a cattle pasture. So kind of what we've got, this is kind of it. So we found out that all the deer are using the pasture field to feed on. There's clover in there, there's pasture grass. And before the snow hit, Heidi and I had a couple really good hunts in here.
but we can never really see up into that corner where I expected a majority of the big bucks to be. I always thought that the big bucks were going to stage kind of by that stand, maybe not necessarily come out early enough into the main plot to shoot. So we went back up in there a couple times, and we never saw him. We never saw a couple of the other deer on the property that we term shooters, and we couldn't get Heidi close enough to some of the bucks that she wanted to shoot, unfortunately. So once it snowed and iced here, I had kind of ruled out this green pasture grass, mainly due to the fact that it was really hard for deer to get to that food. I knew deer would paw it up, but I figured this property is still in a good neighborhood that the neighbors have to have standing food that they'd rather eat. And so I hadn't really targeted this spot very much until finally Hunter went in here and he saw a bunch of tracks when he was doe hunting. And so he saw a bunch of paw marks, he saw big tracks, and what we've come to terms with is the fact of, and what I watched them do is they've been eating the pasture grass. The long pasture grass is what they've been targeting closer to the creek. The stuff by the creek has been taller, and I actually watched a doe at literally like 5 yards, not even 5 yards. If I would have stuck my gun out, I could have touched her. I was so close to her. She had no idea I was there. I had a good hide, I had good cover, and I didn't move. Like, I didn't touch the camera, I didn't do anything stupid. You just don't move and the deer's not going to pick you up. And that deer fed there. I could literally, like I said, I could reach out and touch her with the gun if I would have poked the gun out. And I didn't shoot her mainly because I wanted to try to shoot this buck. But it just goes to show you, if you don't move, and you have a good hide, and the wind is in your favor, most of the time a deer, if they feel comfortable in that spot, they're not gonna blow. Like, I didn't even move my eyes when she would look up at me. Like, it was that still. And I didn't even have a face mask on. So, but the deer were in here eating the pasture grass and really trying to, stay healthy for the winter and survive the winter. We had read some stuff on like pasture grass and clover that a majority of people see big bucks and deer still using this type of habitat and still using greens into the winter months. There's like some thermal property to it where when a deer eats it and has a lot of it, it warms them up and it keeps them warm. So that's why you'll see, like, during the winter months when there's snow on the ground, there will be days where we've even seen it on our farm where the deer will be naturally in the greens rather than just in the standing beans. And so that's what they were doing last night. I went out and I went to a different spot to hide. And my goal was to try to be able to see up into that corner where I expected this buck or the other mature bucks to pop out of. And I set up there, and sure enough, he was probably the 6th or 7th deer out. He actually was out really early at like 3:45. And he was out there feeding in that corner for the longest time, kind of doing circles. And then finally he started working my way in the creek, and I needed him to come probably 100 yards closer to be able to get a shot, and he finally did. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the shot on film because my battery died with the cold. It zapped my battery, and I couldn't change my battery because I had those does. They came into like 3 yards, and then once they kind of soft spooked, they ran out in front of me at like 80 to 100 yards, and they were kind of just standing there feeding and watching me. And so I couldn't just rip a battery out and throw a battery in and try to film it. So I ditched the camera, so it's going to be what it's going to be. He ended up working down across the creek and came up to a spot where I could shoot him, and he was facing me for like 2 to 3 minutes. And at that point I had my phone in my hand watching the time because I had like 3 minutes left of legal shooting light before he finally turned and gave me a broadside shot. And then there I was able to use my Lone Wolf Custom Gear camera armrest, which it worked out perfectly for a shooting rest on the base. I set it on top of there and I just squeezed off the trigger, and it startled me, and I saw him buck and he ran off, and there was another buck in there with him, and I saw that other buck run up out of the creek, and I never saw him. So I figured he was dead, and when I found the blood, I didn't find him much further after that. So it was a perfect heart shot. I didn't get any footage of that, unfortunately, but I blew his heart out, literally. and it just worked out perfect. And this is, in all my years of hunting and gun hunting, we grew up gun hunting for years before we picked up a bow. And I have had multiple opportunities with a gun at really nice deer like this. And to be quite frank, I am just absolutely miserable at a gun. I have a bad target trigger panic. I can shoot big deer with my bow, but this is my biggest deer with a gun, and I'm super pumped of him. Unfortunately, he's a shed antler buck right now. I'm trying to decide how I'm gonna mount him up, but the rest of his body's in there. I think the most important takeaway and the coolest thing that I've learned this season, not only have it's been a total grind this season. I know I'm talking a lot, but there's a lot to unpack here. I hunted all of November. I hunted all of October. I hunted November 22 days. Most of them were all day hunts, and it was just a total grind. And then to go to this late muzzleloader season, it was my last hunt, really. I needed to go back today, and I'm doing that, even though today's the last real day to hunt. And it just goes to show, just never give up, never quit. I mean, I was walking in yesterday afternoon I can't wait to shoot a doe. One of these days I'm going to shoot a big buck during late season. It's just kind of something that I want to do, and lo and behold, it happened, right? So it's really cool to have it happen and to be able to punch my tag on 2 really great bucks this season. It's by far my best season yet. It's been the most fun, and I still count this as your 2020 deer because it's your 2020 deer season. So to be able to shoot 2 bucks, and then I shot 2 does this season, it's just been incredible. And I can't thank the landowner enough for letting us lease this property. All the hard work on the farm that we've seen, and then having fun on public. This has just been an extremely awesome season, and I feel totally blessed to be able to shoot deer of this caliber and just have fun outside. So yeah, with that, I think it's gonna be a wrap for our 2020 deer season, unfortunately. But all good things must come to an end. So in the meantime, stay tuned for the channel. We're having a lot more off-season videos. I think we're gonna revamp our podcast, start doing a podcast, and I don't know what else to say. It's been a total blast. I can't wait for the off-season. Shed season this year is going to be incredible. It's going to be better than before. It's going to be huge. And so thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate everybody tuning in and following along this season, and hopefully you guys all had a great hunting season. Make sure you send us photos of your season, what you guys got. We always like seeing it, and maybe one day we'll get all the collaboration of deer that people have killed in 2020, and we'll just post it out there for the world to see. So yeah, with that, I'll finally wrap it up. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. See you guys in the next one.